What's up, guys? This video is going to be about Dragon Ball Z and how Dragon Ball Z has affected my life since the time I was a little kid. Just kidding. This video is going to be about strength versus aesthetics, which is an issue sort of brought to the forefront of the fitness community this past week by Johnny Candido. I'll put a link to his video somewhere across my forehead. And he sort of talked about why he trains for strength rather than aesthetics primarily. Also, I wanted to cite Sunit Sebastian's video from Sebastian Fitness Solutions because he absolutely went in on the physiology of everything as it pertains to this issue, and he explained it very well in his video. So I'll put a link somewhere, and make sure you watch both of their videos first. One of the major reasons I wanted to make this video is because it seems to me that a lot of people are making this an issue of aesthetics or strength, or aesthetics versus strength, when it really shouldn't be. You really shouldn't have to choose one or the other. I know a lot of the times you see bodybuilders who, they say things like, oh, I'm not stronger than this guy because I'm a bodybuilder, I train for hypertrophy, I don't train for strength. And similarly the other way around, you have powerlifters who say, oh, I don't look as good as this guy because I don't diet the way that he does. And I don't train for hypertrophy the way that he does. And I mean, those are definitely true, but all I'm saying is that the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. So I hear this all the time from fellow bodybuilders or cosmetic athletes or just people in the gym that they're training for the pump, or they're training for the mind-muscle connection, or they're training for, I don't know, delayed onset muscle soreness the next day. But what these people don't realize is that none of these things are necessarily indicators of progress or indicators of hypertrophy. And when it comes to developing your physique, that's what you want. You want to induce hypertrophy. And the only real way to ensure that you're inducing hypertrophy is by progressive overload. It makes much more sense to have a very highly structured training program where you sort of track your volume, frequency, resistance, everything, every aspect of your training, and you increase volume or resistance every time you go in, or as often as you can. The next thing, and this is something that Sunit Sebastian talked about in great detail, and he did a very, very good job of making his point. So check out his video for sure. But it's exercise selection. And what he said is basically that muscles don't know, muscles produce force to, I guess, do a certain movement. So for example, if you take your quadriceps are producing force for knee extension, so straightening out at your knee. And in that sense, they don't know the difference between knee extension in a leg extension or knee extension in a squat. So either way, it has to produce force. Obviously, the amount of force varies depending on the resistance used. But if you could isolate for the amount of force produced by the muscle, then it really wouldn't matter which exercise you did. And from that sense, or from that standpoint, you should probably be focusing on the bigger compound movements like the big three, the squat, bench press, and deadlift, or at least some kind of variation of each one. Because if you think about it from that sense, take for example a squat. If you, let's say, do 4 sets of squats, in order to get the same benefit from doing a bunch of different isolation exercises, you would have to do one exercise for knee flexion, one exercise for knee extension, one exercise for hip flexion, one exercise for hip extension, an exercise for hip abduction, and an exercise for hip adduction, and maybe even some other stuff too. So that's at least 6 separate exercises that you have to do with equivalent volume and equivalent force production as you would in a squat in order to produce the same sort of stimulation for your muscle. So, why did I choose bodybuilding? I think that humans or people inherently seek validation. I know in a recent video I talked about when I initially started bodybuilding, it was because I wanted sort of to gain respect of my peers, and that's not a very good motivation for doing what I do. That there has to be some sort of a very, very strong internal motivation for you to sustain your diet and training at the level that it needs to be in order to be competitive on a contest stage or a powerlifting meet or whatever it is. And that's still true. The internal motivation is always going to be the most important thing to sustain you through your diet and training. However, I think at least the initial motivation to start something, or the initial motivation to excel in whatever you're doing, it comes because we seek validation. And sort of this endless, this endless quest for validation I think it is rooted in insecurity. And I know that so often we think that insecurity is such a bad thing, but we have to realize that everybody is insecure. Like, regardless of how confident you might be, the most confident person in the world still has some sort of insecurity. So I think that insecurity sort of stems from dwelling on the aspects of your character that you're least proud of. I guess for me, I know in my past, throughout like middle school, high school, even elementary school, and maybe a few times in college, I've made decisions or I've behaved in a way that I'm not proud of, and it's disappointing, you know. And a lot of the time in my mind, I feel like in the present, I have to somehow make up for the things that I've done. And I guess the way that it relates to bodybuilding is that my physical development is a direct product of my own ability to bust my ass and to make sacrifices when necessary. And more recently, the recognition that I get from my physical development has allowed me an opportunity to help people, whether that be like my friends who they see me making progress and they ask me how I do it, or the 600 of you guys that watch me on YouTube. It's allowed me to help people to learn and help people to work towards their own goals. And both of these things, my own capacity for hard work and my ability to help other people through whatever it is that I do, both of these things are aspects of my character that I can be proud of. And sort of bring this back to bodybuilding versus powerlifting. As a bodybuilder, obviously you will get noticed more often than a powerlifter. I mean, if you're a drug-free competitor either way, you probably won't get noticed that often. But as a powerlifter, when you're walking around, people don't know how strong you are. But as a bodybuilder, if they look at you and you look different or good or whatever, then they will at least notice and acknowledge that you look different. I mean, maybe not that often, but the few times that people do a double take or the occasional compliment or whatever it is, these things are sort of small reminders that despite whatever you might have done in your past, at least in the present moment, you have something to be proud of. And that feels good. You know, this video was supposed to be about bodybuilding versus powerlifting, but after rewatching the footage, I kind of went off on a tangent about sort of seeking validation and insecurity and all that kind of stuff. And even though it might not apply directly to the original topic, I still think that it's valuable information or valuable insight, at least into my mind. So I'm going to post it anyways. I hope you guys like it. If you do, be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. And that's it for this video. I'll see you guys next time.